Welcome to the Clean Library Podcast, where content meets conscience. We believe there are millions of you readers out there desperately searching for a better way to find clean content. Each episode, we will introduce you to a new author of clean books, giving you, your family, and your friends clean options.
Hello everyone, I'm Marcus Williams and I'm with my co-host Brock Morris, and today we have Whitney Award-winning author Tyson Abaroa with us. Tyson was born in Provo, Utah, but raised in Gilbert, Arizona. His freshman year of high school, he was assigned to write an essay on what he'd be when he grew up. He turned in a step-by-step plan to become a world dictator. That should have been his first clue that maybe he should keep imagining. In July 2001, between his junior and senior year of high school, he enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves. After graduating high school, boot camp, and MOS school, his unit was deployed to build a fuel hose line in support of the invasion of Iraq. After this deployment, he served as a missionary for his church. He married soon after returning home, and just before his first anniversary was deployed again, this time to Djibouti, Africa, as part of the Provisional Security Company. Tyson's ADHD has led to an eclectic career after the Marine Corps. He's been a credit card collector, a claims processor, a track director for USA BMX, and now a pest control technician. He is finally going back to school to earn, and then he puts in parentheses, actually finished this time, he swears, his bachelor's degree. He draws from his experiences and develops stories to write about in his spare time. Welcome, Tyson, to the show. We're glad you're on with us today.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve says it's 5-5 in the truth and lie department. So, this is the tiebreaker today, Brock.
I'll be moving ahead.
Yeah, we'll see. So, Let's go through them and then we'll try to figure them out as we go. All right, number 1. I only eat meat, dairy, and eggs. Number 2. My parents wouldn't let me talk on the phone with girls until I was 16. And number 3, I'm a local jiu-jitsu champion. So diet of meat, dairy, and eggs, couldn't talk to girls on the phone until he was 16, or jiu-jitsu champion. We'll have to see if we can figure this out.
I tried to keep a straight face the whole time, so I wouldn't give it away.
Not cracking, not giving anything. Yeah.
All right. So in your bio, it says you write in your spare time. But how many books have you written so far?
Oh, I've started like 1,000, but I have finished 4, 5. Well, 6. I've finished 6. 2 have been published. 3 have been published. 1 I published myself. 2 have been traditionally published, and then there's 2 more on the dock right now. So
awesome. So did you start traditional and then go self, or the opposite way?
No, in fact, so my first book, The Fattest Mormon, was completely independent. So it's an LDS book. I figured the LDS publishers would be into it. And maybe 20 years ago when stuff like that was popular, they probably would have gone for it. But at the time, they just didn't want it. So I just went ahead and figured there was a hole on the shelf for it, for a LDS comedy. And I found out there was a reason for the hole on the shelf. Nobody really wanted it. But it's the book that actually won the Whitney Award. So after that, I made them notice me, and then they picked up my mysteries.
Okay. So when you say made them notice you, how did you do that?
So I don't know, by chance, by fluke, by miracle, the woman that chaired the committee that rejected The Fattest Mormon was actually the presenter that night. So she handed me the Whitney Award, and later afterwards she said, "Hey, I was the one that kind of rejected your book. We loved it, but it just wasn't for us. So I'm glad it went somewhere and it got the recognition it needed." So then later, when I was like, okay, I guess there's a reason there's a hole on the shelf for LDS comedy, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna change tracks. I'm gonna go into thriller and mystery. I saw that she was going to be at after hundreds of rejections by other publishers and agents, I saw that she was actually going to be at a writers conference and she was going to be taking pitches. And I was like, all right, well, you rejected me last time. You might as well take a look this time. And then they went with it.
Awesome. So for anyone who's not familiar with the Whitney Awards, what is that?
So the Whitney Award is an LDS specific award. So there are multiple categories. The Fattest Mormon was entered in the general fiction. And so I competed against, I want to say 5 other books. But then there's also romance, historical romance. I don't know, a bunch of romance. There's a lot of romance in the LDS literature circles. But then there are some speculative and then middle grade, YA. So there's quite a few authors that compete each year for it.
Okay, awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounds like I don't know. I look at these competitions a lot, and a lot of them you have to pay to enter, and you don't know how many people are entering. But it sounds like that was really what helped you jump the line almost. I mean, you did put out. You said you put out a lot and got a lot of rejections, but
yeah.
Do you think that award was what really helped you get that traditional publishing contract?
I do, because I think they'd seen what I could do prior, and it just wasn't for them. However, when I started writing towards what they were looking for, they now were aware of how I wrote. They know who I was. So it's not the normal way to get traditionally published, but
yeah.
Like I said, I had to make them notice me to begin with.
Okay. So for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with what LDS means, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
So no, you're fine. Just want to make sure that people understand and clarify that. It sounds like the Fattest Mormon which Mormon is a nickname for members of that church. So it sounds like that one would kind of be specific to members of the church to find the comedy in it. Am I right there?
Yes. So it is about a guy who is not a member of the church. So really anyone could pick it up, have a fun time reading it, but there's a lot more inside jokes for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I actually released it and named it before we started saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't call ourselves Mormons anymore.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I did it before that, everybody.
So the next books, the thrillers, are those specific to the church, or are those kind of generic, just published? If you're a reader, would those have inside jokes as well, or would those appeal to a wider audience, or kind of what's your audience for that?
Yeah. So these books, The Cost of Secrets and The Price of Superstitions, they are published by Covenant Communications, which is an LDS publisher, but they are not LDS books. My first book is pretty general, and then as I'm continuing with the story, it has kind of narrowed into more of a general Christian. So it does not mention the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but it does get a little more Christian-centric as it goes along. The third book, when it comes out eventually, it is going to be more so than even the very first book.
Yeah, and I know Covenant, even though it is owned by members of the church, they're not specific to, like, it's mostly, it has a lot of Christian themes, but they have books that are for any denomination or belief system. It's a faith-based company, and I don't want to misportray it, but
their tagline or their hashtag is wholesome suspense. So most of the other suspense writers, there are some specific to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but a lot of them are just clean and wholesome.
So were you writing like as a Marine when you were deployed, and um, was writing one of the things that you like to do to pass the time?
Yes, it was a lot of handwritten garbage that just wasn't good. Me trying to be Tom Clancy, which was never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, when I was on duty, when I needed something to stay awake, I just made it look like I was making notes about the area, and really I was writing
Just
stories.
it was writing stories.
Yeah.
So I spent 4 years stationed at 29 Palms. I don't
Ouch.
know if if you were ever out there, but I was a civilian, so a little bit better. But yeah, 29
So
Palms for
you
4 years was a bit
you
much.
wanted to live there?
No, I didn't get a choice.
Oh,
I
okay. All right.
was that's why I said stationed.
Okay.
But so I was an agent with NCIS, and so
Oh,
that
okay.
was my first duty station. You like they would tell you, yeah, give us your top three choices, and then they would send you wherever they wanted. So, yep, I was at the stumps for 4 years. So anyone out there who was a Marine who's ever been out there, you know my pain.
Well, we didn't like NCIS and we didn't like 29 Palms, so
There you go. So that's okay. That's all right. I was used to it. And as was my family, because we did some overseas tours as well. So you're in it's a much more insulated community. In the States, we could live far away and not, I would be on base, but my family wasn't. But overseas, like schools were on base, our life was on base.
yeah.
And there were many times where people would ask my wife, "What does your husband do?" And she'd be like, "Oh, he's just a civilian employee." Because she knew that they wouldn't want to be friends with her if they knew what I
Right.
did.
Right.
Absolutely. So when as you're writing, I mean, as a Marine, you see things, you hear things. It's not exactly a clean environment. Um, did you, as you're writing, did that like influence your choice of keeping your books clean, or was that just something that you would have done anyway?
I think I would have done it anyways. One of the people that I love to read is Bernard Cornwell,
Hmm.
and so he writes about the Napoleonic Wars and the Great Invasion of the Danes. And so one thing that he said once was that he wanted to write a book that an aunt would buy her nephew. And because he said in the Napoleonic Wars, their language was not clean.
No.
And I don't think any military in history really has a lot of clean language as
Yeah.
they're doing what they do. Um, so it was never really anything I wanted to do. However, when I did write the Cost of Secrets, and I wanted to go wider to begin with, it wasn't. It was clean, but it had a little bit of profanity, just because I was trying to fit in and be more general
Yeah.
and make the agents like me a little bit. But when I turned it into Covenant, they took a look at it. I thought I cleaned it up, and they
Hmm.
took a look at it and they're like, "If you don't clean this up, we're not going to take it." And I was like, "I thought I did."
So they were
And I
even
had to do
more strict.
yeah, I had to do a search, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't clean it up." So I had to do a double cleaning on it.
Yeah. One of the things that comes up a lot in these conversations is just right at what level, where do you set your lines? And it sounds like Covenant has very clear lines of what they'll allow and what they don't. Um, but it can be difficult to figure out where that line should be, and is it, if you have a couple words here or a scene there, what at what line is it still clean, or does it cross that boundary?
Yeah, and my personal standard really is kind of PG-13. Uh,
Hmm.
Kids aren't really going to read my book to begin with, so I'm not really writing for them. However, if my niece or my nephew wanted to read it, I feel totally fine handing it over to my brother or my sisters-in-law and saying, "Hey, yeah, they can read this," and we're all good.
So do you, as traditionally published, does Covenant handle a lot of your marketing for you, or are you still like going out and trying to do a lot on your own to push your work?
So it's both. They do a lot around launch time,
Mm-hmm.
but they're launching books almost every month. So at some point, you're going to drop off their radar, and it is up to you to keep marketing,
Yeah.
which is not really something I've figured out very well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not exactly a guru on book marketing.
What is it that you're doing? Like, where's your focus now?
So what I feel is to just keep getting work out there.
Okay.
If because I've got the series right now, I determined I don't really like writing a series. I feel much more comfortable with new characters, new stories, and
Mm-hmm.
so my goal is just keep getting books out there. And the more stuff I launch, I feel like the more people are going to pick up the past books. That's my strategy: is just write good stories and keep getting stories out there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, even if you're not selling, or book one is not a huge seller, and each book maybe a little bit more, that just the fact that you've got this backlist, that you've got more than one book out, it kind of gives you some bona fides, I guess. That you're legitimate, that there's a reason, if this guy can write more than one book, and if he's published more than one book, maybe there's something to him, and we should check him out.
Yeah, I think independently publishing is great, and there are some people that do it really well. Um, I, I don't really, I don't have as much confidence, I guess, in myself to market that much, but it's going to be the same strategy of just keep getting stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt a little eventually hemmed in by my series, because if they didn't like the first one, they're not going to like the second one. And there
Yeah.
were some not great reviews on the first one, so um, I got a little tired, and I got a little tired of my character. I love him to death, but it's time for me to move on from him and
So
go ahead. Sorry.
you have you're fine. You've got two out right now and working on number three, and that will be the last one of the series.
Yeah, so number 3 is written, and they have it. There were some things in there they wanted me to revise, but there was another book that I wrote last year that is it's completely different, new character, new story, new setting,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like that one will be accepted soon and get slated for publication.
Cool.
Obviously, still stuff to work on the back end with everybody.
Yeah. So give us the spiel on your series. What's it about?
All right, so if anyone's ever been to, I guess, the Eastern Valley of Phoenix, the Mesa Gilbert area, there's mountains to the east called the Superstition Mountains, and you can spend all day reading about all the stories and stuff and the history that took place out there. It's ripe for some pretty awesome fiction, and nobody's really played with it. Um, but the base legend that it's all based on is a guy named Jacob Waltz, who was a German immigrant, and for a couple weeks each year, he would just disappear into the mountains, and then he'd show up in town with a whole bunch of gold. So everybody tried to figure out where his mine was. So that's the base layer of it. My story is modern,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about a guy named Ray Peralta who knows a lot of secrets about what actually happens in the mountains. And so he has to balance his life between his family and his friends and keeping these secrets that he has to keep. He's sworn oaths to keep. So on a New Year's Eve, someone shows up at his house and just kind of delivers a dead body to his front doorstep, and it's up to him to figure out who the body is, and then obviously who done it. Um, and that's the thing about mystery is that he's got to figure out who did it in the end.
Right.
So you have, I feel like mystery and romance we're the brother and sister that don't really talk to each other. but we have set standards of how this is supposed to work.
Right.
If he and she don't fall in love in the end, it's not a romance. And if the detective doesn't solve the murder in the end or the crime in the end, it's not. You can't really call it mystery. So where I have fun, and I'm a pantser, so
Mm-hmm.
it's challenging to do a mystery. But where I have fun is developing the characters and the setting, and I did it all wrong for my first mystery. I just did the normal pantser thing, and I didn't really figure out who the murderer was until the end, which was fun. But then in my revision stage, it took me forever to go back in, add in red herrings and clues and twists.
Clues, right.
Yeah, so I did it wrong the first one, but then the next one I kind of figured out the process for how a pantser could do mystery.
Yeah, so that's an interesting mix. Flying by the seat of your pants with the pantser, and also planning a mystery and all the clues and everything. It sounds like that would be something that you would need to really outline and document. So how do you?
So plotters have the advantage when it comes to writing. I think even writing romance and mystery, because there's beats that have to take place in these processes. But what I did was I visualized the murder itself, so that way I'm logging all the clues that I'm going to put out during the story.
Okay.
And then I kind of started with the solving scene when he figures it out. That was one of the first things that I wrote, and then I filled in from my murder scene that no one will ever see. That's just for me, and then
Okay.
filled in the gaps, because by that point I know who my character is, I know who the supporting characters are, and then I can play in between the two middles. So that's my process. I don't think, if you're a pantser, that may be the only way to do these structured genre type books, is to play around in the middle.
That's interesting. So you're essentially watching the murder happen, writing it, and then you take that scene and you create the mystery from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever thought about releasing those murder scenes like as a special release or special content to your fans?
No, those are just for me. Yeah.
I don't know. Your fans might want to see that kind of stuff. That's that special content people love.
I don't know. I'll think about it. That's my special baby. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. Um, so is this new book that you're working on that's separate from the series? Is that another mystery as well, or are you jumping genres?
no, it's a mystery. I've got my foot in the door for thriller and suspense and mystery. I learned how to have fun with it and like it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I just continue that process, and I've got new characters that I enjoyed more than my first ones. And I've got an ending that I just I wrote it and I got chills, and then I revised it and I read it and I was like, this is
This is
beautiful.
good.
I'm going with it. Yeah.
Awesome. So in the series, is it one long mystery throughout the three books, or is it three separate cases? Or
Yeah, it's three separate cases, but there's going to be an overarching character arc
okay,
for our main detective.
okay, yeah. I mean, because I was an agent and did it for a living, people always ask me, "Well, are you going to write a book based on your experiences or cases you worked?" And I can't do it. Like I've got one, I think, in my back pocket that I'm marinating on, but it's almost like it's not as exciting in real life as it is in a book, and I'm afraid that couldn't make it as exciting because I'd wanted it to be accurate. I'd be so focused on it being accurate because I know what it's, because I've done it before. So,
Oh yeah, I bet. And my characters, I don't think I'll ever write an actual police officer, agent, whatever whatever it is, because I don't know I don't know that world. But at the same time, I feel like if we could watch you doing your crime fighting in NCIS, it was probably boring at times.
oh yeah, like
So
80,
so
80% of
amateur,
the time it's boring,
yeah.
20% or 10% of the time it's fine, and then 10% it's awesome.
Yeah, I think amateur detectives you can have more fun with because
Yeah.
they're not bound to things like Miranda rights. They can just grab someone by the collar and force them to. I don't suggest people do that in real life, but
Yeah.
my fake people are allowed to do that.
Yeah. And they don't have to sit and spend 6 hours writing a report on something that took them 20 minutes to do.
Exactly. The police that work with the amateur, they're the ones that have to do all the paperwork, and you don't ever need to do
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. I, there's 29 Palms. I mean, Marines know how to, like, if you're going to commit a crime, Marines know how to do it. So, like, I had some really good cases there that would make for some excellent stories for sure. But I'm just haven't quite gotten to that point. Like, I've written some middle grade detective mystery stories where I can be a little bit more formulaic and kind of a little bit more teaching them critical thinking through this case and mystery. So I've been able to do that, and I think those are fun. But like a hard boiled crime story, I just haven't been able to do yet.
of all the places, though, I think 29 Palms would be an interesting location for a mystery setting because you have all of these knucklehead 18-year-old dorks in one location, and they're only allowed out to real cities on their extra long weekends. So they're all stuck in that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I might have to come up with something.
Yeah, you should. I mean, and that real city, it's either LA or Las Vegas.
Yeah,
So I mean, you can get up to a lot of trouble in those two places as well. But
yeah.
like, I mean, we had unidentified bodies out in the desert, people that came on base, and we had all sorts of stuff. So it was a crazy place. But so you're working on a degree now? Is your focus to do this full time, and this is what you're studying, or are you studying something totally different?
Oh no, it's always been my dream to be a full-time writer. I finally found the right school, the right format, and so I am getting an English degree
Okay.
because I think I'm not a smart reader. Um, as I'm taking some English classes, I'm like, oh, that's it's been hidden in there for 400 years, and I'm just now figuring that out. So I'm a dense reader personally. So if I can learn to be a better reader, and I think if it helps my writing too, if I can be as subtle and symbolic as some of these other writers. I think it's really only going to help. So
Yeah. So are you like on a creative writing track in the English degree, or is it just general English degree?
no, it's actually it's an English degree with an actual emphasis on journalism.
Okay.
Um, that's just the way that it's set up. So I'd rather do creative writing, but journalism is actually I thought it was going to be kind of boring, but it's actually been pretty interesting. And I mean Hemingway did journalism and writing too, so why not?
True, true. And you could do worse than Hemingway.
Oh, I do. I definitely do.
I mean, he's not my favorite, but
No,
like I can't argue that he's a master. Um, but I mean, journalism, the, especially when you're working on your creative, and you got to pay the bills still. So that there's a lot of independent journalists out there, or even affiliated. It's a definitely a good career and good practice writing if that's something you decide you want to do as well.
I hate nonfiction in all of its forms. There's like in my library, there's like 3
So you'd be a
months.
perfect journalist
I
then.
guess, yeah, exactly. I can make stuff up. Yeah.
Sorry, all of you journalists out there. I just had to.
Sorry, not sorry, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. I mean, they bring it on themselves. Let's be
Right.
honest.
I like journalists more than poets, so I'll say that. Sorry,
All
guys.
right. um, so, especially in the mystery, thriller, suspense genre, do you think being clean is a disadvantage in the marketplace, advantage, or it doesn't matter?
I think if your story is good enough, it doesn't matter. Because mystery is a wide range. There are cozy mysteries that sell like crazy, and then of
Mm-hmm.
course the hard boiled ones. People might expect it out of that, but
Yeah.
if the story itself is good, if the character is likable, even if they're hard boiled and they have rough edges, if the character is still likable, it may not matter what they say. Um, and maybe they will say things, but you don't have to use those words.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like, I've read both, a lot of both, and I think sometimes on the cozy side, the fault is um, inaccuracies. They don't focus on the mystery or investigation as much because they're more focused on the coziness. So that bugs me. But then on the hard boiled side, sometimes they focus too much on the graphic and the violence, the graphic nature of it, that they lose the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think either way you go, it's still important that you have a good story and good characters and one that makes sense. And, I try to not be too um, judgmental about procedure and all that stuff. Cause that would drive me crazy. I wouldn't be able to read anything or watch anything, but at the same time, it's got to be at least mostly believable, that in the realm of possibility, even.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It can't be fantasy.
yeah,
Which
yeah, and
sometimes you can look at a mystery and be like, that I'm not a cop. I've never been a cop, and I know that would never happen. So
yeah, like I read one, um, and it was an FBI thriller because that seems to be one of the big ones is FBI thriller, um, which drives me nuts and for multiple reasons. But anyway, she described this whole situation with the FBI Academy, and it was all wrong. And so, as an experiment, I just Googled what happens at the FBI Academy, and the first thing that came up answered all of the questions that she got wrong. I'm like, you didn't even do a Google search, you just made it up. And how am I supposed to read the rest of the book if you don't even care enough to do one little search?
mm-hmm.
You know, and even if so, yeah. So even if her character was likable and was good, but I'm like, I can't get past that. Like, that's just too lazy. You got to do
Okay,
the work.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there needs to, like you said, there needs to be some work involved as well. So a little bit of research, but not so much research that you're like, I don't even want to write this anymore.
Right, right. You research your way out of being interested in it.
Yeah.
So, do you spend a lot of time up in those mountains?
Not really. I mean, you only have one season to do that in, and when it's nice out here,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and so in the summer, you just don't go out there. So if anyone's looking for lost gold, come in the winter. Don't go in the summer because that's where most of the deaths happen is
Yeah.
dehydration.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I've hiked around it, but honestly, my inspiration for that is when I was really little and my aunt used to babysit me. And as we were going to 7-Eleven to get her Diet Coke, she would tell us stories, some of the older stories of the Superstition Mountains, the legends that are behind it. And so I've always been fascinated with that area. And then I just said, you know what? Someone needs to die out there and someone needs to figure out who did it. So that was the genesis of me writing about him.
Yeah. Those desolate landscapes, there's a lot of story and a lot of history behind those where you can make it really interesting.
Yes, it's endless. My second book, my second novel about the superstitions, it focuses on a different legend that most people actually don't know about. It's about a guy named Al Senner, and how he actually did find gold, but then he got cheated out of it, and then he became what's called a high grader, and he went to. You'll have to read it. It's a pretty good story, but it's one that most people don't even know about.
Cool.
So it sounds like you get a lot of inspiration, or you have from where you've lived and things like that. What about? I'm always fascinated to hear where you pull character inspiration from, or do you base your characters on people you've known in life, or are these complete fictional characters that you just made up?
They are mostly versions of myself. Is what I could say. I mean, in The Cost of Secrets, he was a Marine Corps reservist, and so I put in a whole bunch of Marine Reserve jokes and how he's not a real Marine, but
yeah.
And then even The Fattest Mormon was based on me doing a weight loss competition. So the book that we're working on is that I've got, I don't know, best way to say it. The book I'm working on with Covenant to be released, the new one, the new characters, new story. That's going to actually be my first character that is not like me at all. So, maybe that's why I feel a little more proud of him. He was just, I feel like I have characters that just haunt me sometimes. So I don't know that I know anyone that is like my characters, but I just feel like there's someone out there that they've got a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also read a lot and I watch a lot of TV, maybe a little too much TV. And so there's just these melding of all these different characters that come out in my mind and then come out in the pages.
Yeah. Do you find it harder to describe someone who's different, this person who's different than you, or rather than your other character who had more of you in him?
I think because I had worked on characters that I felt were kind of like me, and I think that was a stepping stone to go into someone that I've never known before, and has problems that I've never known before. So I would not have had the courage to write someone that I've never met like I finally did, unless I had worked on someone that I could see parts of myself in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that answers that one.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's like you can see that maybe it's a confident, just, correct me if I'm wrong, but just by describing someone where you had your own traits in it, you built that confidence to be able to now create something different.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what it was.
Awesome. So are you working on audiobooks on these, or are there already audiobooks available?
So there are audiobooks available. Jason Tatum is the narrator. So I've never met him. I don't have any say in audio, which is fine, because as everyone can see right now, I have a face and a voice for writing. So I've tried to record myself, and it just, I mean, I hated it. So,
Yeah.
but that's one really awesome thing about traditional publishing is that part they take care of completely on their own. So I just have to go in and make sure that the narrator will know how to pronounce some words. And it being Arizona, there's a lot of Spanish words that I had to write out phonetically for whoever was going to end up being the narrator. But other than that, that was all on them. And I think the the narrator, the voice actor, does really good work.
Awesome. That's cool. And that's definitely, because one of the things a lot of the authors we've talked to have struggled with is deciding who to get to narrate their book, trying to pay for the narration of their book or do it themselves and all that. So that is definitely an advantage of traditional publishing, to have them just take care of that for you. That's
exactly
big bonus, big bonus. So do you have any other clean authors out there that you would recommend to our listeners?
You know what? I do. Jared Garrett, and let me see. Her pen name is T.M. Holiday. Those are two really good authors, really good writers, and they've got a lot of stories that they share.
Awesome. Great. We will add those ones to the list. So as we get ready to close out, is there any advice you would have to anyone out there who's an aspiring author or just like struggling to get going? Lessons maybe that you learned in your journey?
Set a daily word count and just get it done. Just keep writing. There's so many reasons not to, but if you're being haunted by a story or you're being haunted by a character, that's you saying, "Hey, I have to write." If that's not what you're bargaining for, then maybe you shouldn't be writing. But if you have to get this out, set your daily word count. I don't even say time. If it's 1,000 words, if it's 1,200 words, if it's 400 words, get it done each day. There's no excuse. And even if you're like, I think I'm about to be published, keep writing, even though you're going to be terrified of maybe being rejected.
Yeah. I mean, it would take the same type of consistency and effort to be a jiu-jitsu champion as well. Nothing.
That was slick and just nothing. Yeah.
Well, when MCIS is asking you questions, just straight face and don't say anything.
Don't answer.
That's the advice you got from your gunny, is you say nothing.
Yeah, tree line can handle most of the problems, and gunny can fix it in the tree line. So
there you go. All right. Well, it is time to get back to that. So let's remind everyone, first of all, number one, I only eat meat, dairy, and eggs. Number two, my parents wouldn't let me talk on the phone with girls until I was 16. And number three, I'm a local jiu-jitsu champion. Brock, what do you think?
All right. Well, this is kind of tough because I think they could all be truths, and so it's trying to find the lie here. But I think the weight loss thing makes me think that the meat, dairy, and eggs sort of keto approach might be real. We didn't really get into anything about your teenage years, so I'm actually going to say, and being a Marine, certainly jiu-jitsu and athleticism, I think, is part of it. But I'm going to say maybe you did jiu-jitsu, but you're maybe not a champion. So I'm going to say that jiu-jitsu is the jiu-jitsu champion as the qualifier is the
Okay.
lie. But I'll let you I'll let you guess, Marcus.
All right. Well, I'm always playing for the win, so I've got to go with something different. So I'm going to go with number two. I'm going to say maybe they wouldn't let you date until you were 16, but you could talk to them on the phone. So I'm going to say number two is the lie.
All right, Brock, you took the lead with this one. I love jiu-jitsu, but I am terrible at it. So, yeah.
Okay, here's me.
I'll gladly take it.
That was good reasoning.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why Marcus is an author now and not is still an investigator, right? I think
ouch! Ow! Dude. Okay, that was low.
That was low. That went way too personal, way too quick. My apologies, Marcus.
I think we're going to need to find a Matt and see what he can do.
Yeah, he would take me all day long. Yeah.
All right. Well, Tyson, thank you so much for being on the show. We've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been a lot of fun. And everyone out there, check out his books. You can find them online. I'll post a link to his website as well in the show description. Check those out. Check out the recommendations as well. Please subscribe. Please share with others. That's the best way to help us reach more people. And we will catch you next time on the Clean Library Podcast.